rest of you get aboard. I'll deal with this scum.
No! Take me along!
G.I. Joe, a real American hero explored. Howdy guys! Today we explore G.I. Joe, the Real American Heroes, a series based on the toy line created by Hasbro. Those who watched it in the UK and other European countries might recall them as Action Force or International Heroes. The cartoon has essentially 2 seasons with 85 episodes that we will cover today. We are not getting into the mini-series that came before. The series was created by Ron Friedman and produced by Sunbow and Marvel. Yeah, big names. Now that any confusion is out of the way, let us give a short introduction, just to, jog your memories, or in case you haven't watched it yet. G.I. Joe is a special mission force fighting a terrorist organisation called the Cobra. While there is a long list of G.I. Joe soldiers, for the villains, the roster is slightly less with the Cobra Commander and Serpentor, supported by Destro, Zartan, Baroness, Dr. Mindbender, and the Crimson Twins. So, if you are still with us, let's find out what happened in this peak 80s action extravaganza. If you appreciate our effort in bringing you this content, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more.
This is for messing with my father!
Season 1, How It All Began, The Pyramid of Darkness Part 1 to 5. The first episode is about G.I. Joe preparing to launch a space shuttle for their space station. It is escorted by Flint and Lady Jaye. Lady Jaye jinxes the launch by saying it looks woo-ee without Cobra, as just then, Shipwreck notices Cobra hiss tanks emerge from Earth and fire cables that form a net to restrain the shuttle. Crimson Twins, Tomax and Xamot, in their trouble bubble, appear out of nowhere to stick guiding thrusters to the shuttle for the Cobra to drag it away. The Joes are quick on the case, and a handful of them in jetpacks are released to take care of the shuttle. It's not long before the twins and the Cobra Commander are knocked from their respective vehicles, and the trio is reunited in the lake. However, before the Joes can capture them, 2 gigantic robots emerge from the water and take away the villains. Flint orders Shipwreck and Snake Eyes to follow, while Lady Jaye and Flint take to the skies and chase Destro through the labyrinth of the city's skyscrapers. The robots deliver the Cobra agents to an underwater base and get on to fighting the Joes approaching in their Shark underwater shuttle. Shipwreck and Snake Eyes are the only ones who succeed in getting close to the tunnels, while Roadblock and the rest are sucked inside by the aquatic robot and shot out. Pleased with his plan's success, the Cobra Commander invites Destro to join. Destro loses his tail by getting inside a concealed Cobra base, and sometime later, the Cobra Commander commends Destro's escape. The Cobra Commander shows his associates how the attack on the shuttle was a distraction to load a special cargo undetected. Did you know that 2 years after the episode aired, Hasbro released Defiant, a Joe space shuttle? The real trouble begins as Dusty, Mutt, Junkyard, Breaker, and an unknown soldier feel the shuttle thrown off by an extra weight. They go to investigate, and while the Joes unload the cargo bin, the unknown soldier opens the hatch of another bin, secretly revealing Dreadnoks, who reports to Sergeant Popper. The Joes opens the unauthorized cargo, and to Scarlet's delight, it contains cute, fuzzy little creatures called Fatal Fluffies, a gift from the Cobra Commander. Surprised? Well, so are the Joes as Sergeant Popper reveals himself to be Zartan, a Cobra agent. Zartan blows a whistle, and the Fatal Fluffies become fire-breathing fatal giants wielding weapons, pouncing on the Joes. As for Snake Eyes and Shipwreck, the duo makes it through an underwater tunnel and enters the base, trying to mingle with the other Cobra agents. Back at headquarters, Flint becomes restless as the Cobra leaders have escaped. 2 Joes are missing while communication from Space Station Delta is disrupted. They receive a transmission, but it turns out to be Zartan, who is called to obtain the headquarters coordinates. As the Joe headquarters burns, the Cobra Commander proclaims the beginning of his construction of the Pyramid of Darkness. The Cobra Commander plans on submerging most of the Earth in total darkness, but the Joes remain positive about having their day. However, things don't look great with Shipwreck and Snake Eyes stuck in a death trap. If you want a better introduction for the Joes and the Cobras, look for the file cards written on the back of the G.I. Joe toy packaging. It's written by Larry Hama, who also hogs the credit for the character developments in the series. Anyway, Now that you have a better idea about the people we are going to deal with, let's see what happens next. In episode 2, we find Shipwreck and Snake Eyes finally make it inside the base. All thanks to Polly, the parrot, for pronouncing the password correctly. They notice the Cobra worker building the 4 black cubes and place a homing device on one of them. Meanwhile, Flint and Lady J have sought the help of Admiral Ledger to use his aircraft carrier as a temporary base. However, Admiral Ledger is superstitious about not having women on board. Let's face it, comments like that would earn him a punch on the nose. But right now, the Joe's nose detects the homing beacon and finds Destro moving one of the cubes to a volcanic spot called Devil's Playground. Flint ignores the Admiral's remark and takes Lady Joe and his troop to stop Destro. Admiral Ledger is a cartoon-only character, and instead, Admiral Keelhaul is included in the toys. On Space Station Delta, Dusty and Mutt work out a plan to notify the Joes on the ground about what's going on. Dusty pretends to be going crazy about needing gravity and switches it on, which causes the fatal Fluffies and the Dreadnoks to crash. Dusty rushes to the control center while Mutt switches it off to ensure Dusty does not experience a fatal fall. Dusty discovers about the Pyramid of Darkness from Zartan's screen. When he is sent back to work, Dusty works with Mutt to attach a cable jumper to the communications cables so the Joe headquarters can pick up all the Cobra messages. However, they required a little bit of disruption, and egging the Fluffies against each other was indeed a bright idea. As for the Shipwreck and the ever-silent Snake Eyes, the duo gets into the engineer's room, and after beating down a few Cobras, the two get their hands on a rail cart. They get chased by Cobra troops, but with the help of their animal friends Timber and Polly, the duo escapes the underground and onto one of the rugged parts of the city where someone else keeps an eye on them. On the other hand, Dusty's patchwork helps Roadblock and the others learn where the rest of the cubes are being taken to create the Pyramid of Darkness. Roadblock orders the new Joes to flight preparation. The company of Flint and Lady J also finds them in hot mud as they attempt an ambush on Destro's operation. It's only the beginning. Keep watching to see how Shipwreck falls into a bigger trap when he wakes up to find he is married and has a kid. Be here to know how once the Joes and Cobras work together and bear witness to the birth of the Cobra Emperor. The next episode starts right with Lady J and Flint in hot water. The couple flirts while getting to the surface. Once more, they try to interrupt Destro's task, but get captured by mechanical tentacles rising out of the cube. While they struggle, more Joes arrive to stop Destro. Shipwreck and Snake Eyes also get pursued by Cobra agents as they enter a club. Again, a singer called Satin comes to their rescue as she helps them hide from the Cobra agents. But before that, we are amazed at Snake Eyes' sick moves. What was he doing before becoming a ninja? Not competing in Footloose, right? Speaking of Footloose, Roadblock, Footloose and Airtight arrive at the City of the Dead after Tomax and Xamot. They accidentally wake up the Guardians, resembling the terracotta warriors of the Lintong district in China. This was planned by the twins, but they didn't expect to be attacked by skeleton warriors while positioning the cube. The third cube is brought by Major Blood to be placed in the snowy mountains. Alpine and Bazooka are on their tail, but their methods are rather unorthodox. For instance, Alpine yodels to break an icy cliff near the cube, but nothing great happens as with all the combat. The duo gets buried in ice instead. On the other hand, Satin gets rid of the Cobra agent with the help of her celebrity flair. She then helps Shipwreck and Snake Eye escape by dressing them in costumes. In the City of the Dead, the Joes manage to get away from the zombies and confront the twins. They get hold of Tomax and notice that if one brother is in pain, the other feels it. Xamot activates the cube and flees, promising to come back for his twin. Even with their best efforts, the Joes fail to stop the Cobras from activating the cubes, which send energy beams to the satellite to create a circuit. Zartan activates the darkness, which further spreads through the cube. Alpine and Bazooka also recover from the snow, but are now attacked by Storm Shadow and the Snow Serpents. As they float away in a block of snow, they are surrounded by hungry sea lions. Storm Shadow has a slightly different trajectory in the comics, where he changed sides and became a Joe, but in the cartoon, he remained a Cobra loyalist for the better part of the show. The fourth segment starts right off with Alpine and Bazooka trying to knock away the sea lions when unexpected help arrives from a mystery guy who appears like an angel on top of an icy cliff. The stranger defeats Storm Shadow and introduces himself as Quick Kick, a Hollywood stuntman. Apparently, he was abandoned by the director while trying to film a commercial. Sounds nutty, right? However, Quick Kick helps our guys sneak underneath a Cobra hiss tank while Major Blood activates the third cube. On the other hand, Roadblock brings Tomax to the carrier, but he blinds the Joes temporarily to make a run and yet gets caught. His psychic link with Xamot helps Xamot realize where Tomax is being held. As Xamot goes over the program with Destro, the Baroness, and the Cobra Commander, he requests them not to activate the fourth cube until he gets back his brother. At first, the Cobra Commander disagrees, but Xamot reminds him that Extensive Enterprise, the company funding the project, is owned by the Crimson Twins. The others agree, but when Xamot leaves, Destro jokes about having fewer partners to share the winnings. G.I. Joe has gone through various publication houses and is a long-running licensed comic book series. With so many Joes and Cobras in the scene, there's definitely a lot of story to tell. Meanwhile, Satin helps Shipwreck and Snake Eyes get into a Cobra base. They dance and entertain the guards until they are kicking butts. Satin laments that the Cobras once framed her father. She leaves on her own way. Snake Eyes brings a dejected Shipwreck to reality by reminding him of the laser disc of information. Flint and Lady J travel to the Sea of Lost Souls, a graveyard for ships, where Destro and the Baroness plan to activate the fourth cube. Lady J dives underwater to ambush, but gets caught in a robot octopus. She gets rid of it and instead catches Destro in it. All this while, Xamot enters the aircraft carrier and rescues his brother. Destro manages to get out of the restraints and the cube is activated, and suddenly, the world is submerged in darkness. All electrical devices and machines fail to function, and Flint rescues his lady with a glider. The Crimson Twins also signal their dreadnoughts on the space station, who turn on Zartan to take over Space Station Delta. As for Flint and Lady J, they rely on Mother Nature while rigging sails to the carrier to make it float. The Cobra Commander's celebrations are also interrupted when the dreadnoughts call him, and the Crimson Twins enter the base, forcing him to cooperate with the twins. The final group of Alpine, Bazooka and Quick Kick steals a transport plane, but their triumph also doesn't last, as Cobra agents appear on board. The altercation between them almost makes the plane dive downwards. The final part of this mini-story ties up the loose ends as it starts with Bazooka, Alpine and Quick Kick managing to pick up the plane from its nosedive. They find trouble bubbles and flies out in them. However, as a Cobra helicopter attacks, the trio fights back and hijacks the helicopter instead before flying off to headquarters. Meanwhile, at the headquarters, the lack of power due to the darkness makes things difficult for the Joes. Power returns momentarily as the Crimson Twins and the Cobra Commander speak to the world. The Joes don't fail to notice that the Cobra Commander is suffering from a little bit of power problems himself as he gets brushed aside by the twins. More good news awaits as our cowboys, Shipwreck and Snake Eyes turn up on cows. However, without the power, they cannot play the laser disc retrieved by Shipwreck. Fighter pilot Ace is seen with the ground group, even though his name and designation suggest otherwise. The Space Station Delta team also does well as Mutt orders his dog Junkyard to grab a whistle from one of the Dreadnoks' necks, and as Mutt blows on it, the fatal Fluffies turn into cute, cowardly Fluffies again. But hey, where can we get one of those? Asking for a friend, Dusty and Mutt free Duke before turning off the Pyramid of Darkness control panel. The sudden failure of his plans empowers the Cobra Commander to take back his control, and he calls up Destro, but Destro is rather busy examining Baroness's lips and eyes, so yeah, he takes time to respond. The Cobra Commander orders Destro to build a low-altitude Pyramid of Darkness, and Destro starts blaming his girl for distracting him. So far, the Baroness is represented as a femme fatale and a European aristocrat, joining the Cobra on her own accord. However, a recent live-action version has demoted her to a mere jilted bride and even a mind-controlled one. The restoration of power helps Shipwreck to run the laser disc and patch it with Admiral Ledger's carrier. The video shows schematics of the cube and the Cobra Temple, which houses the cube's self-destructive mechanism. Elsewhere, the Cobra Commander remains certain the Joes will never know the location of the Cobra Temple. Destro's low-altitude Pyramid of Darkness kicks in, and the helicopter carrying Alpine, Bazooka and Quick Kick stops working. However, even with all the power fluctuations, the three make it to the headquarters, and guess what? Quick Kick knows the location of the Cobra Temple. G.I. Joe also has a link with Marvel, as, according to Action Force number 17, Shang-Chi is the one who trained Quick Kick before the latter became a Joe. It's finally wartime, as the Cobra Commander leads his troops to stop the Joes from encroaching. Once again, Bazooka and his friends yodel to break down the Cobra Dragon cannons. The Cobra Commander and the twins still escape, while Shipwreck gets his hands on the self-destruct machine. As the cubes start exploding, the Cobra Commander and the twins retreat to the extensive Enterprise building, while Flint and his squadron are dumbfounded at the second vanishing act of the aircraft. The twins reveal the building to be a launching machine for their own rocket, while Shipwreck and Snake Eyes run toward it to stop them from leaving Earth. Surprisingly, Satin turns up in the elevator and takes the boys to the bridge. Satin rams the Cobra Commander's metal helmet to the console, while Shipwreck and Snake Eyes knock out the twins. However, with the rocket leaving, the trio and their pets leave in Trouble Bubble. Zartan also escapes his restraints and frees the Dreadnoks as they drop to their knees before him. However, Zartan locks them up in a garbage tank before ejecting them and leaves through an escape pod. The Joes on the space station blow up the Crimson Twins rocket, but the twins and the commander have escaped. They turn up as civilians and take a subway home while blaming each other for their failure. Elsewhere, Shipwreck gets a peck and a date from Satin, while Flint finally asks out Lady J. This is the first segment when the Cobra Commander doesn't get captured. But hey, we have the entire series to complete.
Give it your best shot!
Countdown for Zartan. The episode begins with the Dreadnoks teaching the new Cobra recruits how to use their weapons, while Storm Shadow impresses the recruits with his ninja skills. Destro and the Cobra Commander watch them. Destro finds the Dreadnoks useless and points out they are only loyal to the gold that Zartan paid them, but the Cobra Commander disagrees. They head inside, and Destro is startled to find the Cobra Commander inside. It turns out that the one hanging with Destro was disguised as Zartan. Destro and Zartan get into another argument, but the Cobra Commander stops them to inform them about Dr. Metier, who is supposed to deliver information about terrorism to the Worldwide Defense Center. Soon after, Zartan and his Dreadnoks kidnap Dr. Metier, and Zartan wears a mask of Dr. Metier's face to disguise himself. When he reaches the Worldwide Defense Center, Zartan is greeted by a fellow scientist who notices that Dr. Metier has gone back on his words about not ever wearing a digital watch. Meanwhile, Spirit, the native warrior, and his bald eagle freedoms find Dr. Metier suspicious. Zartan excuses himself and meets Storm Shadow, who delivers the bomb to him. Spirit and Freedom catch them red-handed, but Storm Shadow takes care of Spirit while Freedom escapes, and Zartan plants the bomb in the backup control room. Freedom turns up at Joe's headquarters, where Lady J, Gung-Ho, Doc, and others are practicing. They realise Spirit must be in trouble and leave to help. Zartan knocks out Spirit and takes Storm Shadow to the Cobra complex, but Zartan is confronted by the rest of the Joes, who turn up at the defense center. Freedom rips away Zartan's mask, and the Joes lock him up. Whenever Zartan disguised himself as someone else, he was voiced by the person who voiced the character Zartan impersonated. So, for this episode, Michael Bell voiced Zartan instead of Zach Hoffman. Zartan pleads with the Joes to take him to prison, making them suspicious. The Joes figure out the truth about the bomb and look for it, whereas at the Cobra base, the Cobra Commander and Destro receive the news of Zartan's capture, while Spirit is locked up with the real Dr. Metier. The Dreadnoks further torture the prisoners with laughing gas, but the Honourable Storm Shadow saves them. Meanwhile, the Joes do not find much success in finding the bomb, which makes Zartan sweat in nervousness. Yet he refuses to give the location, relying on the goodness of heart of the Joes to save him. But the Joes know better, as they find the bomb and defuse it 2 minutes after the timer goes off in Zartan's watch. Gung-Ho explains he made Zartan's watch run a little faster so that the nerves wreck him. The Master of Disguise, Zartan, still escapes by using his special abilities, but Lady J and Stalker are on his case. On the other hand, Spirit and Dr. Metier escape, whereas the Cobra commander orders a full-scale assault when his plan A fails. Spirit gets into another fight with Storm Shadow, and this time, Freedom arrives for help. The bird helps destroy the base as the good guys escape. Back at the WDC, Lady J and Stalker catch up to Zartan, exposing him to the sun's rays. But the Cobra commander launches an attack, and the Joes split to take care of them. The Joes take down the Cobra, well, most of them, but Zartan, Destro, and a few others escape. As the rest of the Cobra agents are taken away, Gung Ho and Dr. Metier get into the real business, trying out the Cajun gumbo.
It's a trap. Well, I tell you.
Welcome to my fun house!
The Funhouse. Late at night, Zartan sneaks into a protected facility and kidnaps a scientist called Dr. Hibbentrope. The G.I. Joes notes that Dr. Hibbentrope is not the only one, and recently the Cobras have also kidnapped a botanist and a geologist, all men and women of science. The Joes realise the Cobras might be up to something. It's pretty much answered immediately when the Cobra commander calls demanding $60 billion in gold in exchange for the scientists. To make his threat more real, the Cobra commander shows the Joes a tied-up Dr. Hibbentrope, who requests the Joes to save his life by delivering the money. Well, nobody is fooled, right? Because the tied-up Hibbentrope is Zartan in disguise. While the Cobra commander is more than happy to hand Zartan the Oscars, the Baroness is not so impressed. Anyway, the job is done. G.I. Joe Breaker has traced the source of the message to South America, and a strike team is ready for the mission. However, that's exactly what the Cobra wanted. The Joes arrive on the island with a full force of their battalion and take out the Cobra soldiers just for the sake. A team of 6 then blows a hole into the Cobra temple and enters. Trapdoors close immediately, trapping them. I mean, that's what they are for. A magnetic panel relieves the Joes of their weapons. And finally, a flat screen drops from the ceiling for the Cobra commander to communicate. A lot of tech shown in the series was just fictional at the time of broadcast, but is much more real and probable today. So it's not wrong to say that G.I. Joe is a franchise way ahead of time. The Cobra commander welcomes his guest and shows them 3 doors, 2 of which are dead ends, while the other leads to the control room with the Cobra commander. Oh, also, the island is rigged and will be destroyed. There was once a plan to make the Cobra Soviets, but the idea was considered insensitive and scrapped in the early stages. Dusty and Airtight take the first door, and as balloons drop, Dusty pops one. The gas makes Dusty see things, and he attacks Airtight, who leaves, promising to return. Airtight gets attacked by several Jack-in-the-Box and knocked out. Alpine and Bazooka also come across a deadly roller coaster ride, which knocks out Bazooka. Alpine continues the journey alone, only to find himself in a bowling pin pitch and get crushed by one. Finally, Flint cleverly assigns Lady J to work with him. However, when they are attacked by Robo-Cobra commanders, Lady J is the first to fall. Flint charges through the corridor, takes down more robots and finally reaches outside the control room, but the evil trio escapes. Zap, Gung Ho and others also succeed in blowing up a hole in the pyramid and entering. Flint enters the control booth but finds a reset machine that indicates the base is going to self-destruct in 3 minutes. He uses the intercom to alert all the Joes, and everyone makes an escape, while Flint valiantly makes it out with an unconscious Dusty. The island blows up with a red mushroom cloud while the heroes escape. They make a renewed attack on the real base, which was discovered by Wild Bill while stalking the villains. Although the Cobra commander and his associates escape, the scientists are rescued. The Games Master. A man calling himself the Games Master finds his usual games with his clown friend Coco a bit boring and decides to play with actual people. He starts kidnapping the players right in public. At first, Flint is trapped in an elevator and lifted away. Next, Lady J is kidnapped from a dressing room when she goes shopping. The Baroness is trapped in a large tub where she is lounging. And lastly, the Cobra commander is kidnapped right from the top of a Cobra temple. The kidnappings are done with the aid of robots disguised as humans, and when a robot replaces the Cobra commander, it doesn't take long for Destro to realize that their leader is abducted. At Joe headquarters, Gung Ho, Duke, and Scarlet come to the same realization about Flint and Lady J. However, as they remain oblivious to the Game Master's mechanism, the two factions blame each other for their missing personnel. The players, as we are going to call them in this episode, wake up in large baby cots in a house. The games master informs the players of the rules of the game. The winner leaves the island when he or she finds a helicopter, while the rest of the players die. As toy soldiers arrive and point their guns at the players, the four of them start running. The Cobra Commander turns out to be a very clumsy fellow himself. This is not surprising, as one of the origin stories says that the Cobra Commander was a used car dealer before he decided he needed to conquer Earth. The Cobras and the Joes go their separate way, and as Lady J and Flint enjoy the quirky, candy-themed island, the Cobras suddenly attack them. This is an extremely foolish choice, as the Cobra Commander and Lady J find themselves stuck in a sticky, candy-flavoured pool, forcing the four to work together. Elsewhere, both the Joes and the Cobras attack each other in hopes of finding their missing associates. Destro gets hold of Ace, while Duke and Gung Ho appear at Zartan's base. Their confusion clears out, and just like those on the island, the two groups decide to work together in rescuing their folks. Meanwhile, the players run into more trouble as the Games Master unleashes a robot dinosaur. Flint rescues the Cobra Commander, but he gets chewed down and spat out. When Lady J grieves for the loss, the Baroness consoles her, but not for long, as they soon come across the helicopter and compete against each other to get on it. The Games Master goes back on his words, as he introduces a giant lawnmower that chases the three players. However, Flint is alive and well as he kicks down the robots to a grave marked for him. Not really surprised here, Flint enters the Game Master's control room and gets rather startled to find that he is an enormous man-child. Flint beats down the maniac and radios the headquarters. He also stops the lawnmowers from killing the rest of the players. Duke relays the information to the Cobras as per their deal. In a fascinating sequence, Joe and the Cobras arrive and fight the Game Master's toy-like battalion. Zartan and Scarlet hit it off while Duke and Destro fly together. They eventually enter the control room and get rid of the rest of the toys, but the Games Master escapes. Destro enjoys watching the Cobra Commander stuck in a marshmallow swamp. The day ends with Flint teasing the Cobra Commander before parting ways.
Clutch till we're sure we deserve them.
Worlds Without End Part 1 and 2. Zartan and his Dreadnoks steal a matter transmuter and its blueprints, after which they split up. Inside a secret hideout in a tree, Destro shows Cobra Commander that the matter transmuter can transform any matter into something more fragile. Somewhere else, Steeler complains about his work-life balance, unaware that he will have more stuff to complain about. He and the other Joes notice Flint chasing Zartan, and while the Joes succeed in obtaining the blueprint, the Cobras escape. Later, when a team of Joes, including Flint and Lady J, escorts Dr. Reno, the leader of the Transmuter Project, and General Wagstaff, they quickly learn that the actual people are kidnapped, and it's the Baroness and Zartan in disguise. The Cobras kick Lady J and Flint out of the moving train, but they are able to hang onto a wooden bridge. More Joes arrive to help them, but Copperhead also arrives and uses the transmuter to turn the bridge into glass, which breaks, making Joes fall. Sometime later, Flint, Lady J, Clutch, Grunt, Steeler, Airtight, Footloose, and Barbecue wake up to find themselves in a changed world. Someone who is missing from many actions is Snake Eyes, who is easily one of the most popular G.I. Joe members and, as per comics, has a link with the Cobra Commander. His family was killed in an accident involving the Cobra Commander's brother. The team walks through barren landscapes and gets chased by the Cobras, while an odd-looking bug bites Steeler. The group finds a few G.I. Joe vehicles, but soon the engine fails, and the team heads into a local store where they learn that the Cobra has won. Flint pays the old couple US dollars, but the store owner calls it worthless. The Joes finally arrive at the Joe headquarters, but are shocked to find it abandoned and closed by the Cobra Commander. But that's not all. The Joes make it past Cobra guards and enter. While going through the main computer, they learn that most of the Joes are either missing or dead after the last war. It's revealed that there are around 50 active G.I. Joe members, whereas the real names of several Joes are revealed in this episode. Meanwhile, as an effect of the bug, hysteria and panic affects Steeler. The Joes split up, and while making their way through the city, they find every national monument and structure is refitted in the regime of the Cobra. We won't deny that it's kind of amusing to see Mount Rushmore featuring the faces of Cobra's bests, or the Baroness replacing the Statue of Liberty. As they check the newspaper, it finally dawns on Flint that they are not in the future, but an alternate reality. It's the multiverse, y'all, and the Dreadnoks have become Dreadcops that block their path. The Joe teams try to make an escape, while Steeler goes delirious while he is at the headquarters. He is spotted by the Baroness, who looks unusually happy to see him there. The second segment begins with two separate teams of Joes escaping from Cobra Rattlers and the Dreadcops, whereas the Baroness orders Layla to bring Steeler to her. When Grunt chases a crazed Steeler through the canyons, they come across the skeletons of the alternate worlds Clutch, Grunt, and Steeler. Layla arrives after them and convinces the duo to meet the Baroness. Elsewhere, both Lady J and Flint's team run into trouble. To be more precise, Destro captures Lady J's gangs in a parasite matrix, but Cobra Commander has them transferred to the White House. He thinks of the Joes as the resistance and tortures them, while Flint and his team's dogfight with Zartan also ends up with them caught in a similar net. Once, Zartan's action figure had photoreactive skin that turned blue in direct sunlight, whereas, in this series, he is allergic to the sun, which also makes him blue. This action figure was later taken down. Meanwhile, Steeler recovers at Baroness's home and learns that she is a double agent who is actually in a relationship with the dead Steeler. A tattoo on the wrong hand makes Baroness realise that he is not her Steeler, but she still agrees to help. At the same time, Lady J and her gang escape, while Baroness goes to Destro and identifies the Joes as defectors. The Baroness turns Destro and the Cobra Commander against each other through simple manipulation, and even Flint's gang escapes. As the Cobra Commander and Destro face off, the Joes leave the area. They find a portal in the proving grounds and are ready to return, but Steeler decides to stay with the heartbroken Baroness, while Grunt and Clutch also offer to stay back to rebuild the Joes of the alternate world. However, the trio is back in the G.I. Joe, the movie that came after.
Explosive!
There's no place like Springfield Part 1-2. Shipwreck and Lady J arrive at an island to save a scientist called Dr. Mulaney. The sick-looking scientist collapses into Lady J's arms, and when he recovers, he tells them about a formula that the Cobra could use to turn any water bodies into bombs. He also informs that the formula without a secret ingredient is kept in the Cobra Central Headquarters, Temple Alpha. However, before the Joes could take him back to the USS Flag, Mulaney places a device on Shipwreck's temple to transfer the data. As the Joes try to leave with Dr. Mulaney, they get rained down by Cobra planes. Dr. Mulaney goes missing, but the Joes make it back to the Shark came in. However, they are still not out of danger as Major Blood chases them. Lady J makes an emergency landing near the USS Flag, and although she climbs it with the help of Roadblock, another attack from Major Blood makes the Shipwreck sink with the Shark. When Shipwreck wakes up, he is astounded to find that he has aged, married Mara, and has a daughter. The name Shipwreck justifies the condition he is in, although it's more of a train wreck. Mara informs Shipwreck that Cobra Rattlers had sunk the USS Flag, but Shipwreck survived on his own and even earned a Medal of Valor. Mara also states that Shipwreck used Dr. Mulaney's data to capture the Cobras and that Doc reversed Cobra's experiment, which made Mara live only in water. Shipwrecks return home to Springfield with his family, and Mara leaves to go shopping with Scarlett and their daughter Althea. Shipwreck lies on the couch and falls asleep, but as he wakes up in pain, Doc arrives in an ambulance and takes him to an operation theatre where the Cobra Commander demands to know what Dr. Mulaney told him. Since Shipwreck is unable to reply, the Cobra Commander shoots him. This turns out to be a dream, and later, while speaking to Mara about their wedding, Shipwreck again falls on the floor and is taken to an underground car wash, where he is tortured by the Cobras to reveal everything. Shipwreck again wakes up to find it's a dream. The next day, Shipwreck meets his partners Torpedo and Deep Six at Marina del Shipwreck, where Flint arrives with his new fiancée. Shipwreck jokes about the new date looking better than Lady J. Not cool, bro, which makes Flint mad, and Torpedo explains Lady J has died with the USS Flag. This surprises Shipwreck, as only she knows how to extract Dr. Mulaney's data from Shipwreck's mind. Things get clearer when Shipwreck finds Roadblock entering the car wash and melting into a purple goo. A yelling Shipwreck is taken into custody, but he is given a fishy sandwich that makes him faint. Shipwreck again wakes up in a stone cell with Scarlet, Flint, Torpedo, and Deep Six, who melt into a similar goo and then attack him. This two-part episode is definitely one of the best in the entire series, and in fact, it was retooled by the same writers in Star Trek The Next Generation for the episode Future Imperfect. The second part begins with the Blob engulfing Shipwreck and taking him down a sewer until he is spewed in the front yard of his house. As he keeps screaming, Mara calls Doc and Shipwreck is taken to the hospital, whereas Polly turns to be an informer for the Cobra called P9. Shipwreck is sedated and taken into an interrogation room where the Crimson Twins lets Cadet Deming perform the interrogation. Deming switches on the power to hypnotize Shipwreck and walks him through his past. She starts asking about Mulaney's formula, but Shipwreck is unable to answer. As per the twins' orders, Deming increases the power, and Shipwreck eventually reveals that Lady J has the secret code to unlock the information. However, the full power of the machine makes apparitions of the Cobra Commander, Baroness, Destro, and Polly swim around, making both Shipwreck and Deming faint. It's also revealed that Doc in this scene is actually a synthoid created by the Cobras. It's unabashedly funny when the Crimson Twins make a computer repeat every word of the unabridged Oxford English Dictionary to make Shipwreck reveal the secret. The sailor wakes up and washes his face, only to find the grey of his beard and hair disappear. The real Polly also arrives and melts P9 with a laser, while Shipwreck forces the nurse to drink milk laced with sedatives that were meant for him. He figures out that everything is a lie and that Mara lied to him, which means Lady J must be alive. Shipwreck and Polly escape the hospital and enter the car wash building, which turns out to be a secret base. Soon, Shipwreck discovers that synthoids are made to look like G.I. Joes, and that Springfield is actually a part of Alpha Temple, the island he never escaped. Shipwreck accidentally triggers the alarm while spying and gets chased around the building. He ends up in a quiet lab with a notebook opened that has Dr. Mulaney's formula written on it. However, there's more surprise in store as Polly knows the passcode, which enables Shipwreck to remember the secret ingredient. As he turns a beaker full of water volatile, the Cobras enter the room. Shipwreck drains it through the sink and tries to light it, but to no avail. However, the Dreadnoks foolishly shoot at him, triggering the bomb, and the island starts exploding. Lady J, Roadblock, and Flint aboard the USS Flag notice the fireworks, and in a last bit of surprise, Dr. Mulaney seems to have been rescued by the Joes. Shipwreck leaves the base but returns home to save Mara and Althea, who turn on him. Polly melts them to show they are synthoids. Although he is heartbroken, it's a bittersweet ending to the first season, as Shipwreck finally reunites with the Joes and returns to his life as a soldier.
What?
Season 2, Arise, Serpentor. Arise Part 1-5. The G.I. Joes have relaxed and are out of shape, while the new recruits are not yet up to the mark. This displeases General Hawk, the main man leading the Joes, while it pleases the Cobra Commander, who releases Battle Android Troopers, BAT, to finish off the Joes. As the Bats attack, Joe scampers to stop them, but Sergeant Slaughter acts as a one-man army, turning the Bats into scraps. General Hawk seeks Sergeant Slaughter's help in training the new set of Joes to bring them to shape. Meanwhile, Cobra Commander goes his usual way of blaming others for the failure, and Dr. Mindbender, the Cobra scientist, has had enough of this. Dr. Mindbender tells Destro and the Crimson Twins about a recurring dream, which suggests he should find a new leader. In his dream, Dr. Mindbender comes across a glowing DNA-like structure and a large stone version of Cobra Commander. Later, Dr. Mindbender explains to the others how he will create a new leader by combining the DNA of infamous conquerors like Napoleon, Ivan the Terrible, Genghis Khan, and Alexander the Great. However, the Cobra Commander's bug enables him to learn the plan, and he confronts others. He asks Dr. Mindbender to create the perfect leader for the Cobra Emperor, and afterward explains to Scrap Iron, another Cobra lackey, his plan to use the new leader as a puppet while he rules from behind the chair. On the other hand, Sergeant Slaughter trains the Joes well, and soon they intercept a Cobra message meant for Zartan and his Dreadnoks. Sergeant Slaughter is the first G.I. Joe member, who is a wrestler. In fact, he was also voiced by a WWF wrestler. The message is a contract between Dr. Mindbender and Zartan that requires Zartan to include his siblings, Xandar and Zarana. The Joes decide to crash Zartan's recruitment drive for a new Dreadnought. As the Joes spy on them, a very ruthless competition takes place among Dreadnought aspirants. Finally, Sergeant Slaughter, Beachhead and Lowlight catch Zartan and try to pry information from a manuscript which listed the graves they planned to desecrate to obtain the required DNA. Although the parchment gets burned, Thrasher joins the Dreadnoughts to fight the Joes resting in a cabin. In the next episode, Thrasher fails to keep any of his promises as the Joes escape, thanks to Sergeant Slaughter. Later, Beachhead explains to Joe that Cobras have targeted the tombs of several villains throughout history. Although clueless about the Cobras' plan, the Joes decide to stop them from raiding the tombs. Different teams are assigned for this purpose. General Hawk and his troops get stopped by the Mayor of Paris, who orders the flying squad to defend Napoleon's tomb. Duke informs Hawk that his team has received the help of the Russians in protecting Ivan the Terrible's tomb, while Flint's team is on their way to protect Montezuma's tomb. Dusty and his team are appointed to guard Amontoth's burial site in Egypt, but they are soon sidetracked when Zarana appears disguised as a damsel in distress and sends them elsewhere to fight Cobras. Zarana uses Dr. Mindbender's instruction to enter the tomb with booby traps and uses a DNA extractor machine on the mummy. The Joes return, but Zarana escapes with Thrasher's help. In fact, the Joes run into trouble while trying to catch them as they get submerged in water from a dam that Thrasher destroyed. However, they are rescued by Lift Ticket. In Paris, the Crimson Twins also get Napoleon's DNA and flee. The next place of attack is at the Aztec tomb of Montezuma, undertaken by Zartan and his Dreadnoughts. As the Dreadnoughts attack the Joes, they are forced to dive into the Aztec pool of death. The Dreadnoughts and Zartan run into trouble of their own, but still extract the DNA. Flint and the team try to stop them from escaping, but to no avail. In Transylvania, Beachhead's team encounters a sinister voice and finds a ghostly lady, who turns out to be the Baroness, hoodwinking them. The Baroness steals the DNA of Vlad Tepes, or Count Dracula, and escapes with the help of Cobra Vipers. Meanwhile, in Siberia, Duke and his team are attacked by BATs as they guard Ivan the Terrible's tomb. The third part continues with the Joes struggling to stop the Cobras from extracting DNA and failing. Several Joes get caught up in the crumbling mansion of Vlad Tepes, and the rest try to rescue them. In Siberia, the Cobra Polar troops obtain the DNA of Ivan the Terrible and deliver it to a Firebat pilot who escapes. The troop surrenders, knowing that they will be released once Cobra wins. Duke then starts travelling towards the tomb of Genghis Khan, while other Joes decide to assemble at Sun Tzu's burial mound. Sergeant Slaughter notes that they have a better chance of winning if they know Cobra's plans. Meanwhile, a team of Shipwreck, Deep Six, Leatherneck and Wetsuit face off against Destro on the ocean waters as they try to protect Alexander the Great's tomb. Destro messes up the area with chemicals and oil slick fire. As an oil tanker ship starts sinking, the Joes get busy saving the sailors while Destro steals Alexander's DNA and leaves. Elsewhere, Dr. Mindbender and the Crimson Twins attack Sergeant Slaughter to get past him and steal Sun Tzu's DNA. Sergeant Slaughter's ability to survive impresses Dr. Mindbender and also frustrates him, as Slaughter takes apart Cobra agents as well as Tomax and Xamot. Sergeant Slaughter manages to obtain the DNA extractor device from them, but it breaks open when it falls from his hand. As General Hawk examines the machine, he is informed about the rescue of Mainframe and Beachhead, who got buried in Vlad Tepes' coffin. Mainframe complains to Beachhead for not wearing perfume, but we feel it's old Vlad's stink that got him. Meanwhile, failing to obtain Sun Tzu's DNA worries the twins, but Dr. Mindbender wants to use Sergeant Slaughter's DNA instead. All this while, the Cobra has also raided the tombs of Julius Caesar, Geronimo, and Rasputin, so General Hawk tightens the reinforcements around Genghis Khan's tomb. Lifeline and Doc examine the DNA extraction and inform Hawk about the Cobra's plan of creating a superhuman soldier using the DNAs of great warriors and leaders so that they can be replicated to form a clone army of unbeatable soldiers. Finally, a battle breaks around Genghis Khan's resting place, but the Joes win. Cobra Commander tries to use the opportunity to overthrow Dr. Mindbender, but fails, as not all Crimson Guards are faithful to him. Sometime later, the Cobras fool the Joes with a hologram of a damaged ship and lift Genghis Khan's coffin. Sergeant Slaughter gets onto the coffin, and Dr. Mindbender ensures they are inside his aircraft. However, the Cobra Commander slyly ensures the Slaughter is thrown away from the plane. Thanks to Xamot closing the bay doors of the Night Raven plane, Dr. Mindbender is able to capture Sergeant Slaughter. The Cobra Commander comments that they will create a traitor by using Slaughter's DNA, but he gets ignored. Back at Joe's headquarters, reports come in about the casualties, none of which are fatal. Hawk further warns the team about the rest of the places the Cobras have attacked to obtain DNA. He then appoints a team to find Sergeant Slaughter. In the Cobra base, Dr. Mindbender works on a protoplasm to create the perfect leader. Meanwhile, the Crimson Twins obtain Slaughter's DNA to replace Sun Tzu. Sergeant Slaughter tries to escape while the Cobra Commander toys with the experiment and drops a pink pill into Slaughter's DNA to ensure it fails. An abomination that looks like a large blob master is born and starts attacking the Cobra. The Cobra Commander tries to escape, keeping the rest of the leadership locked in, but the monster bursts through. Sergeant Slaughter also makes his escape at the same time, and instead of stopping the monster, the Cobra Commander orders the guards to recapture Slaughter. Dr. Mindbender realizes somebody has tampered with his formula and looks like he knows the culprit. Meanwhile, Sergeant Slaughter escapes into the forest, and so does the creature. Beachhead and Lift Ticket are in a tomahawk when they notice something frenzying up the island and wonder what it's about. The Dreadnoks notice the Joes and engage them. Similarly, Slaughter finally encounters the blob monster, but it quickly changes into just mud. Slaughter still gets surrounded by the Cobras and the Dreadnoks. Dr. Mindbender extracts more DNA from Slaughter, after which he is restrained by electrochains. Simultaneously, a group of Joes realizes where Slaughter is imprisoned and approaches it. Back at the lab, Dr. Mindbender restarts the experiment, hoping to face no more interruptions. Since Scrap Iron told Dr. Mindbender about the Cobra Commander's plans, he gets caught red-handed when again trying to sabotage the process. The Cobra Commander is restrained beside Slaughter and makes a deal with Slaughter that if the Cobra Commander frees him, Slaughter will disrupt the experiment. Slaughter attacks the twins and Scrap Iron as soon as he is freed. He also smashes the tank containing Slaughter's DNA. But even with all the efforts, a new leader, the Serpentor, is born. The final segment starts with Joe's team infiltrating the Terrordrome and getting the better of the Dreadnoks. Slaughter engages Serpentor and gets tossed aside. The Cobra Commander tries his luck trying to veer Serpentor as only a figurehead head, but he too gets knocked onto a wall. However, Slaughter doesn't stop mocking Serpentor, which translates into more injuries for the Commander. However, with Hasbro deciding to go with Serpentor, the idea was dismissed. The Cobra Commander tries to egg Slaughter against Serpentor, but the duo takes it outside. As Serpentor chases after Slaughter, they come across Zartan and his siblings, as well as the G.I. Joes. Slaughter and Serpentor finally face off with each of their teams supporting them. Meanwhile, Scrap Iron finds Cobra Commander trying to destroy Serpentor with the Beatties and tries to stop them. The real lack of integrity and loyalty is surely the downfall of the Cobras. When Serpentor tries to kill Slaughter, the Joes come in for help, and after destroying a few Beatties, they escape. They return to the headquarters and clarify Hawk and Flint's assumptions. Serpentor finally leads the Cobras to a new day, maybe not, as he rallies the army to invade Washington, D.C. and order the subjugation of the Joes. All this while, the Cobra Commander is kept in chains, but we have to give it to him for not being afraid of Serpentor and for being raw and unapologetic to the dumb Emperor. The Joes feel the Cobras are too quiet for good, and to their horror, the news of the invasion arrives. But it's a lucky day as Scrap Iron learns that the President and Vice President are not in town. As the Cobra gas bombs the Pentagon, the employees leave. Serpentor finally assumes his throne and demands that Congress members bring him the G.I. Joes. The President agrees to surrender to Serpentor, and in a very dramatic moment the President, as well as the congressmen and women, reveals themselves as G.I. Joes in disguise. A magnificent fight follows as both sides give their all. Dr. Mindbender realizes they need all hands on deck and releases Cobra Commander, whereas the rest of the Joes start taking down the Cobras on all fronts. Dr. Mindbender convinces Serpentor to retreat, and when Joes tries to capture him, Cobra Commander comes to Serpentor's rescue. Cobra Commander points out that if the Cobras learn how imperfect Serpentor is, they will not follow him. The Commander willfully agrees to be a scapegoat to get saved. The country is saved, but nobody gets captured or punched, so the battle with the Cobra is not over. Sergeant Slaughter hoists the American flag and ends the episode with a salute. In your tent, I will silently creep. The final episode of the series does not draw any conclusion to the story, but is a fitting end to the cartoon's theme. It starts off with Lady Jaye, Roadblock, and Cross Country fighting a bunch of Televipers and Cobra agents. As his name suggests, Cross Country is a big fan of country music, which he uses to distract the enemies, but in the middle of this, Cross Country's vehicle and tape deck get destroyed. However, luck is not on Cross Country's side, as his new tape deck gets stolen by a mutant rat. Cross Country gets mad, but it's not only him, as several other Joes find their personal items missing. At first, Cross Country assumes somebody is pulling a joke on him, but then decides to catch the thief red-handed. The investigation takes him on a deep trail, as Cross Country notices the mutant rats and follows them. One of the rats also copies a G.I. Joe program into a floppy disk and deletes it from the computer before leaving with the disk. As Cross Country follows the Rat Pack, he reaches a hidden lair where the Cobra Commander is creating a secret brotherhood called the Coil to overthrow Serpentor and his deranged assistant Dr. Mindbender. In the comics, the Coil is loyal to Serpentor, who is revived when he dies during the Cobra Civil War. Cross Country gets caught by Dreadnoks, but he manages to escape their clutch. He makes some daring escapes as the Televipers fire up their ammunition, but at last ends up right before Destro and Firefly. The insuppressible Joe refuses to settle as he starts climbing a statue, but the Dreadnoks use flamethrowers to bring him down. Meanwhile, Mainframe finds out about the stolen program and informs it to General Hawk. Elsewhere, Serpentor orders Dr. Mindbender to bring him the Cobra Commander. Now, back to the hidden lair, Cross Country escapes yet again and discovers that slaves are used to mine gold to finance the secret society. He gets caught and the Cobra Commander rebukes him. After he leaves, Cross Country escapes again. Okay, this is getting repetitive. He falls through a trapdoor and is pulled into a whirlpool while Destro and the Cobra Commander watch. The Cobras have finally found the floppy amidst all the useless things the Ratillos have stolen. But as Destro is denied access, the frustrated Cobra Commander leaves till Destro cracks it. In the meantime, Cross Country escapes into the sea and swims to a lighthouse, which he uses to send an SOS to the headquarters via a Polish cargo ship. General Hawk rallies a team to rescue Cross Country and rushes into the secret lair, helping the slaves to riot. After failing to crack the G.I. Joe disc, Destro and the Cobra Commander leave, whereas Cross Country looks for his tape and finds a few other stolen items along the way. He gets found by the escaping Cobras, but Cross Country hits them with the bag full of items and they are forced to flee. The Joes reunite with Cross Country and inform him that the program that copied is a video game, Mainframe and Dial Tone, created for their own entertainment. Marvelous verdict. Yo Joe, we have come to the end of our video. The G.I. Joe is a timeless animated series that has dealt with some very awe-inspiring plots and characters to root for, be it the camaraderie and daring acts of the G.I. Joes or the squabbles among the Cobra members. It's a treat to watch. We loved how the stories panned, but the artwork on the characters could have been better. Do you think the G.I. Joe animated series did a good job? Or do you think a reboot is required? Do let us know.